We've made over 4,000 calls since we started our business, which is about
we do like Google ads, I think.
doing things like sourcing leads, cold calls, sales meetings.
Google ads. And she was like,
This guy was saying, hey, are you sure you're not going to run away with our money, my money?
what are you saying right now? And it didn't help too, because I think the connection was like bad or something. So,
And if you are interested in any particular subject, we'll have some timestamps down below. Welcome to the channel. I'm Gregory.
and I'm Kayla. And today we are going to get started into how we got our clients and how maybe you can too. So first things first, we owned a business, or we were going to start a business, and we said, we need people to pay us to have a business, so we need to find clients. So how did we find our clients, and in what industry did we find them in? Did we try all of them? Did we try some of them? Basically, what we did is that we started with high ticket industries. So we want people that can actually afford our services. We tried out a lot of different people. We tried out chiropractors, dentists, lawyers, accountants, like so many different ones. But then we realized, hey, we're like new at this. Maybe we shouldn't go after the people who are spending $5,000 a month. Like maybe we should go for individuals who have maybe a smaller budget and a little more leeway. So we went closer to tinters and landscapers from there.
And so we were trying to figure out how to, what's called sourcing leads, meaning just finding people to call. And the way we did that was we basically just went on Google Maps and we Googled, starting locally. At first in our thought, we would say like, chiropractors in Las Vegas, right?
Yes.
But again, we thought we wanted to practice first, so we said let's not do anything in Vegas because we're local. And looking back at it, I'm thinking like, well, why does that even matter?
Yeah.
So we would just do like lawyers in New York and just have a list of phone numbers and company names that we would call. But we did this for a while. We spent I think a week or two doing this.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of time being not wasted, but it was kind of an inefficient use of our time.
Yeah.
So we actually still have an executive assistant who helps us with a variety of things. And this was around the time where we were really internalizing the ideal of leveraging.
Yes.
So leveraging time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started having our assistant do this. And we basically gave her our standard operating procedure. So we said, hey, please make a Google sheet. Please go to every major city in the country. And if that week we were calling lawyers, we'd say, please look up lawyers in different cities around the country. And then she'd put that onto the Google sheet.
Yep.
And so that when we wake up the next morning, we would have a list of leads or people or company that we can call. We still do not have a CRM, which is I think it stands for Client Relations Manager.
Yes.
And just a nice organized way to keep track of numbers and calling and who you call, take notes. We tried HubSpot. It wasn't quite a good fit for what we wanted to do at the time.
Yeah.
So since then, for the past 5 or 6 months, we are still using Google Sheets.
Yep. Love it.
We did try Notion as well,
Oh, yeah,
for the
that's
CRM,
true.
but that didn't work out.
Not so much.
Anyway, so yeah, that's how we ended up learning and still doing sourcing our leads.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have a good CRM, drop
Let
it
us
in the
know.
chat. We'd love to know. So now that we've got our leads, now we have to actually cold call. We have to call these people. And that first time, that was a little bit scary for sure. I remember like the night before we were doing cold calls, I was like, oh my God, babe, we have to call people tomorrow.
What do we say?
Exactly. What do we do? And man, my first cold calling experience was pretty much just as bad as I thought it was going to be. I basically called this woman, 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, hello, my name is Kayla, Google ads. And she was like, excuse me? What are you saying right now? And it didn't help too, because I think the connection was like bad or something. So it kept dropping in and out. And I just kept trying to explain to her like, we do like Google ads, I think. And she was like, you think? What? And it was just, yeah, it was a learning moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, except me too. My career was in engineering, and the ideal of just calling strangers wasn't too bad because I'm quite social. And I thought to myself, like, I can do this, but it's very different when you conceptualize it in your head versus actually doing it. But I had the same thing. I'm like, okay, in theory, like, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to call someone. But when you experience it for the first time,
oh man,
it's very different. But luckily, we have made 4,000 collectively cold calls, and now it's just kind of second nature for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that I heard a lot at the very beginning was like, the best way to get good at cold calling is to just do it. And I honestly think that's true. And that's something that we learned from like YouTube and other sources. And it's interesting too, because when we first started, we kind of were going into it blind. Like we didn't even know how to write a script. We didn't know who to really call, how to call them. So we ended up stumbling upon this guy named Thomas Gonnet. He's got some really good content about like, this is the sales script that I use. This is the cold call script that I use. And that's where we found our first script. And he actually works in the beauty industry as well, and that's what led us into the beauty industry too. So finally, us working with med spas. But yeah, our script, that was a journey as well. Obviously, our first script was not that good. We had to iterate many times, and we still are iterating with it
every week.
I would say too, like for us starting, having a script was really helpful to be able to look at something and go, okay, this is exactly what I'm saying, instead of thinking of something on the fly, at least for me. So from there, we kind of broke our numbers up a little bit. So we started with 10 per day. I remember when you had 10 per day.
Yeah, and slowly we built a callus, I guess.
Yes.
And balancing that out with the rest of our like business aspects.
Yeah.
We started to ramp up and...
Yeah, now we're up to like 50 calls a day each.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at this man is crushing it too.
50 calls each, so that's 100 a day total. That's 500 per week.
Yeah.
And that's, if we extrapolate that, that's 2,000 a month.
Yeah, so we took that advice to heart, basically, and we are doing a lot of cold calls. Something that's really helped us with our cold calls, we don't use an auto dialer right now. I know a lot of people use those, but right now we use Google Voice, because originally we were literally like picking up our phone, typing in the number, and that takes a while versus like copy paste. So that's what we're using. We are, I think, open to using an auto dialer in the future, but for now, it's working. Next question is, how many does it take? How many does it take to we get a client, basically? So we've broken down the numbers, or he has broken down the numbers. It's basically 100 cold calls to get a single sales meeting. It takes 10 sales meetings to close one client. And then after that, it's 1,000 basically cold calls to close a single client. So we're basically doing like 1,000 plus calls. And I mean, I would say that since we've bumped our numbers up, it has helped. Mm-hmm. It really has helped. And it's led us into some really interesting sales meetings. Yeah. So our first sales meeting was pretty interesting. It was with somebody who, I you know what? I will say I'm very grateful that they even took our first call, to be totally honest with you. We were pretty green, and I think we may have come across exactly as that and may not have said all the right things. And it kind of, soured that first call, but it was a learning experience and moved us into a lot of how we do our sales meetings now. Yeah,
and in that first story, when we had a sales call, basically what happened was this guy was saying, hey, are you sure you're not going to run away with my money? Like, I know people, I'll hunt you down. And it was kind of in a not semi-joking tone. So I remember for a full day after, we were just like, man, do we want to do this? This is kind of scary.
Oh man.
Looking back now, we now understand that was kind of an anomalous situation.
Yes.
And fortunately enough, our first client, who is still our client, is one of our favorite clients. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But so we've talked about sourcing leads, cold calling.
Yep.
And the next step is hopefully after around 100 cold calls, you get one sales meeting. And what we do once we book a sales meeting is we spend an hour, that's probably too much, like 10 minutes or so doing some preparation. So we have our own outline and the script, and we do some recon. We look at their website, their social medias, just a little more about how we can, what we talked about during the cold call.
Yeah.
So we revisit like, hey, what did they say? What do they want?
Notes.
So that when we go into the meeting, we know like, okay, this is what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And we try to figure that out. And over time, it took, during the meeting, we do things like we basically shoot the shit. So just, kind of build rapport in the beginning. And then we really started out with pain points. So we asked them, hey, like, what's the problem? How can we help?
Yeah.
And then once we let them talk, we say, okay, well, these are the things we can provide. Maybe we can fill in those gaps for you.
Yeah. Find a solution.
And over time, I think something that's been really interesting is our offer.
Oof. Yeah.
I think along with our script, that evolves almost every week.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alex Hormozy, $100 million offers. Oof. Everyone should read that book.
Fire.
Basically your first year of your MBA.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even today we're still constantly changing our offer. and it takes a lot of iterations to find the one that sticks. So
Yeah,
we tried a lot of ones here and there. And then of course, when you're closing, hopefully on the sales meeting, it's taken us, I think, on average, the second sales meeting. So we've tried closing on the first meeting, closing on like 5 meetings later, but I think the sweet spot is the second meeting.
I agree.
For us, when you try to close in the first one, they're just like, who are you? Like, why am I going to give you money? But if you go too far, like 4 and 5, they kind of just fizzled out, or like things don't really solidify.
Exactly.
But in any case, something we had to figure out as well is the payment processor.
Yeah.
So we started out using Stripe, but I think that wasn't the one that we really enjoyed using. So we now use Square. And so when we go to a sales meeting where we think we're going to close, we have Square up and ready to go, so that when we ask how you want to proceed and they're ready to go, we take down their email, their number.
Yeah, business address, anything you'd need for billing, basically.
Yeah.
And we like to have that ready.
And then the idea is that we send it on the phone call. And similar to cold calls, right? Like for the cold calls, we're trying to close by scheduling a meeting.
Yes.
So the idea is that we want to try to schedule it before we get off the call. And for sales meetings, we try to invoice them before we get off the call.
Yes. In the wise words of Iman Ghazi, he says, a client is not a client until they've paid. And that is true. So after basically we've got them to pay and we've gone through the sales meeting, we'll kind of go from there into a separate process. But before we do that, I just want to talk real fast about our iteration and improvement, because our first sales call and our first offer is definitely not what we're using now, and it took a lot of A/B, back and forth, up and down to get to where we are. I mean, anything from how we source the leads, using Google Maps versus Googling, businesses, cold calling. We literally revise our script every single week. We talk about it. We go, what worked, what didn't. And then with our sales meeting, that has been a large, chunk
experience
of our learning. Yeah. So one thing that's really helped us, and that Gregory here has mentioned, is recording. He was a really big, proponent for that. So we started doing that. That's helped us go, oh man, we were talking way too much in that meeting, or maybe we should have said something differently. And then of course we've talked about the offers. Again, go ahead and check out Alex Ramosie's $100 Million Offers book. That's really informed our offer creation.
Yeah, I've read that twice at least.
Yeah.
In the past eight months.
Yeah.
And we've actually both gone through the free course online, which is really cool. Which is basically the book as well.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. And then the last thing that my young Gregory has talked about a lot is mentoring and finding people, who are better at what you're doing, have succeeded in your realm, and going to them and going, hey, how did you do it? We kind of did it in an interesting way where we were originally going to hire somebody, but then we ended up just having him do mentoring with us, and he was so kind to be like, hey, I'll just, hop on a 30-minute call.
Right.
We can talk about it, things like that.
And we realized that in sales, I think one of the key components is follow-up.
Yes.
So
oh my gosh.
you can't just like call them or email them or whatever and never follow up. In fact, most, I think, of our clients that we got is because we followed up with them in one form or the other.
Absolutely.
So follow-up is key.
Yes.
And as Kayla mentioned, the reason why we found this sales mentor is because at some point we realized most of our time and effort is going towards sales. And that's kind of like the major component, right? I think Grant Cardone said was like, focus on sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like service delivery will come, your clients will never be happy. And by the way, like you'll figure that out. And you need business to keep the business running. So sales is where you need to focus.
Exactly.
And so, we've been thinking about hiring a salesperson, but although those are more kind of more higher costs.
Out of our budget right now.
Yeah. And it's actually a new skill set for me that I like to continue to develop, and also same for Kayla.
Yeah.
So but this is only the beginning of client acquisition. We're still learning. It's been 2, 3, 4 months or something of client acquisition.
Absolutely.
And we've learned a lot of stuff along the way, because we know that eventually we want to be able to have people come to us instead of us reaching out to them. Mm-hmm. So right now, again, we're doing cold calls. We're doing email follow-ups after every cold call.
Yes.
We're reaching out via Instagram through DMs. Mm-hmm. And again, eventually we want people to come to us, right?
Yeah.
So we thought maybe med spas are Googling marketing companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are trying to work on those things for the long run. So we're actually learning or using Google Ads now to try to get clients. We are starting Facebook pages for med spas. We're starting a med spa website where hopefully patients can come to the website and then we can route them as patients as referrals to different med spas.
Yeah.
And then we ask our current clients and potential clients, hey, do you know any other med spas since you're all in the same industry?
Absolutely.
If they can use our services. And the last thing that I think we'll go on to in another video is probably conferences.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, where are all these med spa owners go to, you know? And a common thing that happens in any industry are conferences. So we went to one. It didn't work out as we quite expected, but I think there was a lot of lessons learned, and we're optimistic for any future conferences that we go to.
Yeah, definitely. So if you've made it this far, I know that was a long one, but thank you. That's basically our current sales experience from beginning to end of getting a client to closing a client. I would say if you have any recommendations about our process or how we can improve it, please let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And in our next video, we're going to actually talk about onboarding. So you got your client. Now what? What do you do with them? So we're excited about that. And then we upload weekly, actually. So subscribe to follow us on our journey because we'll be posting quite frequently.
Yeah. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification.
Ding!
Peace.
Peace.